afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another bout of Propagandacast news from your host, Imperial Dane, the only trustworthy source of news in this terrible, dark age of the 21st millennium. Not 21st millennium, 3rd millennium. Anyways, you get the point. It's dark, it's terrible. I'm the only one you can trust for the right opinions on everything. And we got here, of course, a new patch, June 14th, the new commander update, adding 5 new commanders, all free, by the way, so you don't have to shell up a single dollar for any of these. Not even a single Reichsmark, though. How you got those Reichsmark? I think I'm going to have to ask some questions there. Anyways, we sort of got, also some balance changes here and there. Though, again, primary bit here is, of course, the commanders. So looking at first, we've got the USF with the Urban Assault Doctrine, or Commander. You got the Urban Assault Kit, which basically sort of adds re-echelon rifle grenades, which are slightly less powerful compared with the fighting pit grenades, but still, we got cost 60 munitions. And, with the suppress, they do scatter more, plus the riflemen get access to incendiary grenades, or basically just Molotovs. So, yeah. Basically give the infantry a bit more to go with there. Then you get the M4A3 assault package, which is just basically dozer blades, which have been buffed, so they actually do more. Plus the Sherman can now fire a white phosphorus shell as well, giving it much more flexibility and quickly used to just deal with infantry. Support weapons can just get hit by a white phosphorus shell, in which case things are going to get ugly. Plus again, getting more health and more armor makes it, overall a bit tougher as well. In fact, it might in some ways become tougher than a Panzer IV with that, so yeah. Anyways, we also got the new cover-to-cover ability with the Doctrine, which throws down some smoke, and units within radius of it basically get to sprint with it. So it's basically a slightly more focused tactical move with a bit more going on for it. Additionally, you got Rangers, which got buffed. They're slightly cheaper now. Cost less, though, of course. At the same time, they had to give up something, so they're a bit easier to kill. But at the same time, they get access to preparatory bazookas, which just perform better than average bazookas. So they can be used for that. And of course, keep in mind, Rangers can equip 3 bazookas rather than just 2. So you can form up a pretty nasty anti-tank team with them if you want to. Finally, the Calliope also gets a bit buffed again, slightly cheaper. And a bit more AoE, but it does become easier to destroy. So I guess they learned the lesson from the Pank Howitzer, which I think still dodges a few nerfs. And then we got some more general nerfs. Dodge Truck and the M3. Basically, units inside are less amazing when they're sort of flying around from it. So less tactics there. Similarly, Pathfinders get nerfed a bit, and they actually have a cooldown now, and that's been slightly increased. Additionally, there's been some veterans requirements, so I can't say if they've been increasing it or decreasing it. That's a bit lacking in there. And finally, the reactions Volufier, they get slightly buffed, so they take less damage while using it. Moving on to the British, we get the Lend-Lease Assault. Yeah. We got assault sections, which basically gives them 2 Thompsons and the rest with Sten guns, meaning they will get a lot of firepower. They get white phosphorus grenades, which technically is just going to be like the blend curve. They can sort of block line of sight, but can also use to damage infantry. And they also become slightly harder to kill. Of course, at the same time, some other stuff happens there. Also, keep in mind, they actually get a slight change to the icon when they get upgraded. So you can actually tell them apart, besides just, they get a submachine gun icon. They can call in mortars, just like the USF one, pretty standard stuff. M5 half-tack, which can be upgraded to the quad mount, so they get some flexibility then. They also get the vehicle crew repair ability. Pretty much just same old, same old. And finally, they get the M10 Achilles, which is basically what they call the M10 Tank Destroyer. Note, this also applies to the 17-pounder gun version, but they just call both of them Achilles. Blame the Brits if you have to, but basically, you got yourself an M10 Tank Destroyer, something a bit faster than the Firefly. Additionally, 6-pounder guns are less effective as light vehicles, since now they get snares, and the United gets buffed. Nerfed, actually, that's pretty good, since it was kind of a mini tank, which was less good, really. So now it's less, impervious to damage, can actually be focused down more easily. Mills Bomb now have a minimum range of 3, though I don't think that's going to make a big of a difference here. Overall, I would have liked to see maybe some slight nerfs to the infantry sections as well, but, I guess we can't have everything. At least they nerfed the Universal Carrier. Moving on to the Soviets, we get the Airborne Doctrine, which gives them, for example, the weapon crate drop, which basically sort of drops a weapon for 45 munitions. And, if it's conscripts picking up, they get 4 SVT-40 rifles, meaning they increase the firepower notably. And if you sort of grab it with something else like the penal troopers, they get, submachine guns, meaning they become much more offensive close quarters units there. So there's a bit. Then apparently engineers can also pick it up. I didn't know that, but if you want to, you can also upgrade your engineers with it, I guess. Then you also can airdrop in a Dishka heavy machine gun, so you can sort of do that for a bit of a low price. Very nice there. And apparently it has been buffed a bit. Specifically, it has more penetration and a slightly bigger arc. basically to make them better versus light vehicles. Then you get the airborne rally point, which, you know, can allow you to reinforce stuff from it, around it. Plus you can call in medical supplies there, so that's nice, and it can act as a fort retreat point as well once, you know, you got sort of far enough. Then we come to the airborne guards. Actually, they cost 380 manpower. It says 360, but in game currently they cost 380. At least that's what my eyes tell me. And they can infiltrate like stormtroopers. So, yeah. Which actually reflects how a lot of them work, since there were some big paratroop operations, but a lot of them failed. In many cases, they had to just sift into the background. They actually ended up doing a lot of work as partisans. But they equip with SPT-40s and, you know, grenades, so they're pretty solid offensive infantry. Plus, they can be upgraded with triple DP light machine guns for 100 munitions, which are actually really good. They can upgrade with submachine guns, and of course they get access to smoke grenades as well, and they can use suppressor fire with it as well. And finally, they also get in Veterans 1, they can call in a suppressive strafe there, so that's rather nasty a lot. And then finally, there's also rocket barrels, just, you know, to try and see if we can knock out some vehicles. Then we go on to their general changes. You got the conscripts getting buffed, in a sense, well, they get an upgrade at the mechanized armor company called mobilized reserves, which means they become, well, they go to 7-man size squad there. They also gain experience faster, meaning in late game if you lose conscripts, you can use this to sort of soak up for that. Plus they become tough, better in cover. Basically they shoot a bit faster there, so it's a very, you know, potentially strong upgrade, and I'm not entirely sure I'm a huge fan of it. In that sense, the Sold's already kind of good at grinding out in the late game. The Wehrmacht still kind of has that issue with lax firepower, and this could possibly just make things a bit more ravish there. So I'm not hugely sold. I'm not necessarily saying it's right or it's a bad idea, but I'm a bit worried about it. I'm just a bit concerned about it. Though, of course, it is worth noting they can't upgrade with other weapons, so they can't, for example, grab SPT-40s with this, or, you know, say pick up PPS-41. So there are some limits to it. Like, you gotta sort of keep them as they are. So obviously it's not without its cost either. Anti-tank grenade buy got made a lot cheaper. That's going to cost me pretty big, and the sustainability on the maximum gets better because now, you know, actually gets a buff. Finally, they nerfed the M42 anti-tanker, which was getting heavily spammed, so it's a bit more expensive, and the canister range is a lot less, you know, well, nuts. So that's a big plus. After that gets nerfed, or buffed actually, becomes, you know, a bit cheaper overall, and the quad mount there apparently gets buffed a bit as well, which could be a bit worrying. We'll have to see. And then the H-6 gets sort of slightly changed up as well there. So it's better versus medium armor, but it's less effective against heavier armor. Now I think what's going to really push the H-6 is less that and more what comes next, which of course I'll explain. And then you got the M5 Assault Half-Track, which is now a bit faster available there for certain doctrines that has it. That was basically, I think, Lend-Lease, so there you go. Moving on to the Wehrmacht, one of the bigger ones here. We got Assault Grenadiers getting buffed as part of, you know, the strategic reserves. Basically, they become a bit harder to hit, though they compensate a bit there with the Veterans 1 bonus being reduced a bit. And they can also be upgraded with a Veteran School Leader, which increases another member, and of course allows to grab stuff fast, and overall just makes them further harder to hit. So already there, the Assault Grenadiers gain a nice buff. Top of that, MP40s are getting buffed, and it's not just the Assault Grenadiers, it's the Assault Officer, I guess the Artillery Field Officer. And the Falcon MP40s, they basically gain a bit more punch at longer ranges, so they don't have to be right up there breathing at the enemy for them to actually be hurt. So that does also help them up there a bit in terms of just overall performance, and will make Assault Gunners MP40 Falcon Gunners, of course, again, the Artillery Field Officer, notably better. And particularly again, the Assault Gunners with the other changes as well, it's going to be much stronger now. Then you get the Mobilist Observation Post, which just does not make sense. Like, again, these strategic reserves are sort of based off, you know, specific Kampfgruppen. They were meant to just throw off a Soviet assault. They didn't need mobile observation posts. They needed firepower. This is the exact opposite of firepower. Like, this is just no. In fact, they didn't even have reconnaissance elements, these units. So again, no. Again, it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't fit with the rest of the doctrine. It's just dumb. So yeah, I really don't like that ability, and I really feel like they should have done something more interesting with, say, the half-tracks rather than turning into static observation posts. Again, failed. Failing grade. Breakthrough equipment, you get smoke grenades for your Panzergrenadiers, not bad. Pioneers can sort of throw satchel charge, and they can lay down demolition charge to destroy cover, that's nice. So, you know, it does give them a bit of flexibility there. Not a huge deal, but, you know, not so enough, something to ignore either. Then you get access to the Panzer IV Model J at the, you know, headquarters there. Basically, I mean, you just need to swarm core the heavy Panzer and just begin, you know, building them. And basically, they're just better Panzer IVs. They have more armor right away. And they also start out with more accuracy, which is actually really important to remember. Plus, Adventi 2, they gain more accuracy. They're just flat out better than that. And I could see in some cases this catch on. So far, I haven't seen so much. Maybe perhaps the rest of the doctrine is, less amazing. But honestly, I probably just wish they just replaced the regular Wehrmacht Panzer IV with this, because again, I think would also do a lot more for the Wehrmacht than, some of the other changes they're proposing. But anyways, it's going to be a good Panzer IV. The question is going to be enough here for the rest of the doctrine to really make this commander more viable. I don't know, but it's definitely pretty good to get. Then finally we get the Tiger Ace, which now doesn't require command points. You just need to have the heavy Panzer co-ops. In theory, you can rush it out, but that's going to be pretty hard. Basically, that also doesn't reduce your income anymore, so that's a pretty big one as well. Starts at Veterans 1, meaning it has Blitzkrieg. It also has access to Spearhead, which allows you to just see farther and move its turret faster with a small arc of fire. In theory, it might also have Suppressor Fire. At least that's what the King Tiger does. Also, it has an overall 10% increased accuracy, so it's just more accurate murdering stuff. Has access to emergency repairs ability, which again allows you to fix it up faster. And, it has quite less population, but it's also now a lot more expensive. It's one of the most expensive tanks in the game. Plus, you can call in repeatedly if you want to, though. Obviously, that's going to be a huge resource sink. So, I'm not entirely sure if that's going to make it really a lot better, but it's definitely going to make it better than the previous one in certain ways, and certainly seen some rush out, though I don't feel like the results have been particularly pretty. So, moving on to the general faction change, we've got the biggest one, which is the Ostwind getting buffed. Basically, all of these changes mean it shoots faster. It shoots a lot faster. Sure, it can only hit 2 models per squad, but again, with its rate of fire, it actually doesn't matter too much. It will still tear apart infantry in most cases. And of course, your opponent blobs up and you got an Ostwind firing it. It's going to really just hurt them a lot. Plus, the AA there being improved is also going to make a big difference there for the Ostwind. Really, it's just huge. The Ostwind is actually good. Plus, it's good versus light vehicles. And the sort of thing there, which I think, unlike the buff to the H-6, that's going to force people to go more for H-6s, because now the Wehrmacht actually has a threat. They might actually want to have to go for an H-6 to try and stop. So, in this regard, I think there's going to be some adaptation to the new Ostwind, but, again, there might even be some rushing forward. Either way, though, big change. So that's probably one, I think, the biggest for the Wehrmacht. Just the Ostwind is good now. And I know it's going to, give people some shock, but the Ostwind is good now. On the other hand, the Stug buff is like painting it red, and it's going to make you say it's going to go faster. It might work for the Orcs, but we're not Orcs, we're humans. The other way to put it is putting lipstick on a pig. It's not really going to do much. They're making it slightly harder to hit, making it rotate slightly faster. The problem is, it's just, in most cases, going to meet a lot of firepower, and it can't kill stuff enough. And the fact is, it has 2 levels of veterancy, which don't really do a lot. Target weak point has been rendered almost useless, and veterancy 2 was never good because the bonuses are negligible. At least they could have added a health bonus to veterancy 2 so it can at least absorb some more hits, or slightly improve the armor bonus there, or something else, and replace the target weak point with something else. Maybe an ambush mode, or suppressor fires from machine gun, or anything really. This just feels like they're just not even trying. This just, they're trying to make it look like, hey, we're doing something with the Stug, but no, they're not really. Again, it's painting it red and saying it's going to go faster from it. Again, this is not really going to help a lot. Panzergrenadiers is another substantial change, though basically now they can be built at the Kampfgruppe headquarters after the first phase has been researched. They also get access to the Panzer Railway that way as well. Plus, they now get the infantry doctrine combined arms sort of passive ability instead of the medic kits. So they basically mean once they got Veterans 1, they move faster and they're harder to hit around armor, so and vehicles in general, so that's pretty good. Also, there's been slight changes to the veterancy bonus. Basically, now at veterancy 2, they also gain an offensive bonus. That means their veterancy 3 bonus is less impressive, but still, it's a big one. Default 3 upgrades are also less expensive. A lot less, in fact. And they also reinforce faster, and they also take less time to build. So in many ways, Panzergrenadiers are now more accessible and can use them sort of more types of strategies. And you just need to take 2, so you can theoretically use them to cover up as you rush to tier 3. So again, this is going to give the Wehrmacht a lot more options how to build. And it's going to make the Panzergrenadiers, I think, a bit better as well. Plus, with population from 9 to 8, they're also going to be requiring less upkeep, and you can have slightly more of them overall. So, again, really, I think substantial buff here to the Panzergrenadiers, unlike the Stug. And again, we will be seeing, I think, a lot more Panzergrenadiers as more people try them out. And again, it is slightly more worth it now. And again, there'll probably be strategies that involve getting up Panzergrenadiers fast, some with Panzerstrakes, and then going for the Austrians. Again, that'll probably be it. And I partly suspect that becomes the main thing. That's also going to think very telling about the state of the rest of the Wehrmacht. You just really want to just skip most of the early game to push straight for the Ostwind. Again, that should be telling them there's some issues with the Wehrmacht's early game elsewhere. And finally moving on to the Oberkommand West for the Grand Offensive, where you get the new Panzer Fusiliers, which now has to be built rather than called in. They cost 280 manpower. They have cheaper flares. They're also slightly less in terms of size. And their grenade, I think, has actually been buffed a bit as well. Then plus, they get sort of sprint ability more regularly at Veteran 5. The other big change, though there are actually numerous changes to them. Also worth pointing out here, they get access to Panzergrenadiers for 100 munitions. So a 5-man, you can get a 5-man squad with that. Though, of course, they do lose their anti-tank rifle grenades, which I, by the way, want to point out, don't require, any of the trucks being set up. So if you're actually worried about light vehicles in the early game, like M3A1s or the Dart truck still, going for anything with Panzer Fusiliers can actually allow to stop them, because you actually that way get a snare to stop them. So that's actually pretty big then. That's actually a big detail. And then you get the recon package, which just puts them up to 6-man. And of course gives them G43s, they sort of, it kind of works like that. But it does require the mechanized of the battle group headquarters to be deployed still. Pretty substantial stuff. Also worth noting though that they start out as actually being slightly worse than Volksgrenadiers. So in that sense, again, our players are going forward, but they can still feel a bit underwhelming, and because they upgrades to make them better as infantry are much more expensive, you might still see people just going for the Volksguns with MP40s because it's just going to be much more cost efficient. Still, it does open up for more strategies already here just for the new Panzer Fusiliers. You get the Infrared Sturmgewehr 44 package, for the Obersoldaten, you get the Stuka Smoke Drop, you get Panzer Command, and then you finally get the Command Tiger, which is basically like a regular Tiger tank, except has the Command Tiger ability, which boosts troops near it, but does make it slightly, less amazing in combat. And eventually too, it gains a slight buff there as well, but also it can affect vehicles, so it becomes in that way a pretty strong command vehicle if you want to use it. If you yet to see anyone, and of course got a bunch of other abilities that makes it stronger steadily. But the other big thing about the Panzer IV Command Tiger is, or the Panzer VI Command Tiger is, it's actually slightly cheaper than a regular Tiger. But also very importantly, it doesn't require command points. It does require you have the Schwerpanzer quarters up, meaning theoretically, with the Oberkommand West, you can actually rush out a Tiger tank. You can actually get out reasonably fast. Again, this is a Tiger tank in most other measures, so that's actually pretty powerful. And I'm definitely going to be expecting more strategies around this. And again, in team games, we're going to use fuel cache to maybe try and push out a Command Tiger faster. And honestly, I feel like they should have done the same thing with the Wehrmacht Tiger. There's just a regular one. Just allow it to have, just require the heavy Panzer core and you can just call it. You can have it build. I think that make things a bit more interesting there as well. Moving on there's a slight buff to the Kubelwagen. It's a bit faster now and can also gain shared veterans, which means allow connecting veterans up faster. So that's a plus. And the Latin now requires a lot less experience. Plus there's some other smaller changes here, like ghost sandbagging, where people just throw down sandbags, so mess with pathing. That doesn't work anymore. Boob checks can be placed on victory points, except for the server one. That's great. And basically all units now shoot less accurately in sight light vehicles, less accurately. So yeah. For the most part, some good stuff. At the same time, I feel like with the Wehrmacht, it still doesn't really fix a lot of the main issues. It just, slightly fixes some of them and paints other red in the hopes that, makes it look more flashy, but again, doesn't really fix some of the issues there. I feel like still, Wehrmacht early game is a bit waffly there with the MD42, which I still feel like is not really making a lot of sense in its current stage, which again is what the British Vickers suffers from at the same time, and they really need to look into those. And at the same time, again, the Austrians going to do a lot there for the late game, but again, that's tier 3 unit again. Tier 4 still sort of underperforms in some ways, but still, it's a step ahead. I still feel like they need to look into some of the veteran abilities. Again, Wehrmacht Blitzkrieg, I feel like needs to be a much stronger ability, much more useful. And again, they need to do something about the Stuke's veterans ability as well. But still, there's some good steps. The Panzergrenadiers and the Austrian. Again, the Austrian is huge, so big. Again, that's always something. So there are probably going to be some shifts in the metagame from all of this, and this is good. But again, it doesn't fix a lot of the core issues. There's still going to be some of the problems there, but at least there's going to be more room for different strategies, more room for other types of tactics, and that's a start. That's a plus. That's actually really important. They have more strategies you can actually take advantage of, rather than just always have to play the same goddamn game. So all the way though, I'm going to give a decent grade. It's not just a passing grade, just decent. It's not amazing grade. It's not like A plus, but a extra little arrow just pointing upwards to say good job there. But it's not like, they just, barely just above failing a grade. It's sort of in between. It's alright, but it certainly has a long way to go with the Wehrmacht still. But again, it's making progress. It's actually making progress for once. Though again, the Stuke one there, that one pulls down. That really pulls down the grade. They're trying to pull that on past me again. That doesn't work, really. It doesn't. So there you go. That is the my thoughts here on the patch for now. Again, mostly good, but does look a lot of critical issues here and there. There might be some worrying parts, but you know, at least they buffed the Ostwind for once, and they didn't make it worse this time around. Hey! So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something from it. Liked it. If you did, subscribe, like, share, comment on it. Remember to press the bell if you subscribe. And if you like what I do, you can donate or pledge on Patreon. Every dollar allows me to keep making these videos day after day. So do consider tossing in a bit extra there. And this is Imperial LinkedIn. Cheers, and see you all another time for another video. Bye.